Good afternoon. This is Ken Hudnall. You're listening to the Ken Hudnall Show. Coming to you from our studios right here in exciting El Paso, Texas. Gateway to the Old West. Most haunted city in the country. Well, it is February 25th, the 56th day of this new year. Only 309 days remain to the year's over with, and then we get to do it all over again. It's National Clam Chowder Day. World Spade Day. National Chocolate Covered Nut Day. Let's all eat right day. It's Pistol Patent Day. This celebration honors the milestone in firearm history. Commemorates the day when Samuel Colt got his patent for the first revolver. Yes, the Colt made all men equal. At least that was the saying. National Eating Disorder Awareness Week. It's National Chip Week. And chips can either be potato chips or French fries. It's National Justice for Animals Week. Another celebration is the Maslenitsa Festival, a week-long festival marking the transition from winter to spring. It's a time filled with laughter and gatherings and delicious food. One of the key symbols of it is the blini, or pancake, which are said to represent the sun's warts. This is actually a Russian celebration. It was basically started in Moscow. Then it's the Venice Carnival from February 14th through March the 4th. Museums Advocacy Day. Make mine chocolate, and I'm in full favor of that. National Green Week. National Invasive Species Awareness Week. You know, our ecosystem does face challenges, and some folks strive to preserve native flora and fauna by managing the impact of invasive species. Then there's Cornish Pastry Week, Peace Corps Week. Famous people born on this date: Rashida Jones, Sean Astin, Tia Leone, and a man that I've met a number of times. Even gave me a ride one afternoon. Ric Flair, the symbol of wrestling. February 25th is part of International Vegan Cuisine Month, American Heart Month, National Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month, National Snack Food Month, Spay Neuter Awareness Month, talking about pets, not people, National African American Read-In, National Children's Dental Health Month, Human Relations Month, Feline Fixed by 5 Month. If you want to spay or neuter your cat, do it as soon as possible. National Macadamia Nut Month, Exotic Vegetables and Star Fruit Month, Berry Fresh Month, National Therapeutic Recreation Month, Marijuana Awareness Month, National Goat Yoga Month, Financial Aid Awareness Month, Adopt a Rescued Rabbit Month, National Mend a Broken Heart Month, National Wedding Month, Canned Food Month, North American Inclusion Month, National Black History Month, Raynaud's Awareness Month, Renaissance of the Heart Month, Spiritual Teachers Month, Pull Your Sofa Off the Wall Month, National Senior Independence Month, National Laugh Friendly Month, National Enrolled Agents Month. Somebody sent me an email asking me what that referred to. We're talking about enrolled agents across the U.S. during this month. These are the tax professionals who helped. They're sometimes considered the unsung heroes of tax season. These are the individuals that help you figure out how to fill out those confusing tax forms. Because sometimes our understanding of what the rules are and the government's understanding are two entirely different things. Then there's National Care About Your Underwear Month, International Boost Self-Esteem Month, Free Open Source Software Month, From Africa to Virginia Month, National Sweet Potato Month, National Avocado and Banana Month, Fabulous Florida Strawberry Month, National Cancer Prevention Month, Cholangiocarcinoma Awareness Month, Spunky Old Broads Month, National Blockbuster Month, Ethnic Equality Month, National Cat Health Month, Humpback Whale Awareness Month, Dog Training Education Month, National Prevent Litter Month, Declutter for a Cause Month, Creative Romance Month, and Fair to Remember Month, National Women's Inventors Month, National Embroidery Month, Youth Leadership Month, Haiku Writing Month, Jobs and Golf Month, Love the Bus Month, Potato Lovers Month, Celebration of Chocolate Month, Wise Healthcare Consumer Month, Barley Month, National Self-Check Month, National Condom Month, Pet Dental Health Month, National Parent Leadership Month, Relationship Wellness Month, National Grapefruit Month, Low Vision Awareness Month, National Fasting Month, Return Shopping Carts to the Supermarket Month, Great American Pie Month, National Cherry Month, National Bake for Family Fun Month, National Bird Feeding Month, National Hot Breakfast Month, National Library Lovers Month, and, last but not least, Harley Quinn Month. That's from the world of Joker and the Batman. All right, in 138 A.D., Roman Emperor Hadrian adopts Antonius Pius as his son, effectively making him his successor. 628, Khosrow II, the last great Shah of the Sasanian Empire, which was Iran, is overthrown by his son, Kavad II. 1336, 4,000 defenders of Pliny commit mass suicide rather than be taken captive by the Teutonic Knights. The Teutonic Knights, of course, were the German version of the Knights Templar. And Pliny was a hill fort in the Grand Duchy of Lithuania. The actual location is not known any longer, and it's subject of academic debate, but it's well known in the history of Lithuania due to its heroic defense against the Teutonic Order in 1336. The fortress, which was commanded by Duke Margiris, tried in vain to organize a defense against the Teutonic Knights. Losing hope, the defenders decided to burn their property and commit mass suicide in order to deprive the order of prisoners and the loot that they came for. This dramatic episode from the Lithuanian Crusade is inspired a lot of works of fiction. There are a number of other crusades besides going to the Holy Land. I know of one in France. There was one in Lithuania. I can't talk today. 1403, Anna Silly coronation as Queen of Poland took place on this date. 1705, George Frederick Handel's opera Nero premiered in Hamburg on this date. 1836, Samuel Colt granted the United States patent for his revolver firearm. 1843, Lord George Paulet occupies the Kingdom of Hawaii in the name of Great Britain in the Paulet Affair. 1870, Hiram Rhodes Revels, a Republican from Mississippi, sworn into the United States Senate, becomes the first African American ever to sit in Congress. 1875, Guangxu Emperor Qing Dynasty China begins his reign under Empress Dowager Chi-Chi's regency. 1912, Marie Adelaide, the eldest of 6 daughters of Guillaume IV, becomes the first reigning Grand Duchess of Luxembourg. 1916, World War I, the Battle of Verdun, a German unit captures Fort Douaumont, keystone of the French defenses, without a fight. 1918, World War I, German forces captured Tallinn, to virtually complete the occupation of Estonia. 1921, Georgian capital Tbilisi falls to the invading Russian forces after heavy fighting, and the Russians declared the Georgian Soviet Socialist Republic. 1932, Adolf Hitler, having been stateless for 7 years, obtains German citizenship when he's appointed a Brunswick state official by Dietrich Klages, a fellow Nazi. As a result, Hitler is able to run for Reichspräsident in the 1932 election, and that began the Nazi buildup. 1933, launch of the USS Ranger at Newport News, Virginia took place on this date. It's the first purpose-built aircraft carrier to be commissioned by the U.S. Navy. 1939, as part of the British air raid precautions, the first 2.5 million Anderson shelters is constructed in a garden in Islington, North London. And while this was the very first one, there weren't 2.5 million similar shelters built by British citizens. In fact, some are still in use today. 1941, the outlawed Communist Party of the Netherlands organizes a general strike in German-occupied Amsterdam to protest against Nazi persecution of Dutch Jews. 1947, the formal abolition of Prussia is proclaimed by the Allied Control Council, the Prussian government having already been abolished by the Bundestag in 1932. 1947, the Soviet NKVD forces in Hungary abducted Bela Kovacs, Secretary General of the majority independent smallholders party, and deported him to the USSR in defiance of Parliament. His arrest is an important turning point in the communist takeover of Hungary. 1948, in a coup d'etat led by Klement Gottwald, the Communist Party of Czechoslovakia takes control of government in Prague and to end the Third Czechoslovakian Republic. 1951, the first Pan American Games are officially opened in Buenos Aires by Argentine President Juan Perón. He was a colonel who led a coup and took over the country. 1956, in his speech on the cult of personality and its consequences, Nikita Khrushchev, leader of the Soviet Union, denounces Stalin. In Russia, you can be a veritable god today and something that they want to scrape off their shoe tomorrow. 1980, the government of Suriname is overthrown by a military coup led by Desi Bouterse. 1986, People's Power Revolution. President of the Philippines, Ferdinand Marcos, flees the nation after 20 years of rule. Corazon Aquino becomes the Philippines' first female president on this date. 1991, disbandment of the Warsaw Pact at a meeting of its members in Budapest takes place on this date. 1994, American-Israel extremist Baruch Goldstein commits a mass shooting at the Cave of the Patriarchs Mausoleum. 29 people died and over 100 were injured before he was disarmed and beaten to death by survivors. 1999, Alitalia Flight 1553 crashes at Genoa Cristoforo Colombo Airport in Genoa, Italy. 4 people died. 2009, soldiers of the Bangladesh Rifles mutiny at their headquarters in Pilkhana, Dhaka, Bangladesh. 74 people died, including 57 army officials. 2009, Turkish Airlines Flight 1951 crashed during landing at the Amsterdam Schiphol Airport in the Netherlands, primarily due to faulty radio altimeter, resulting in the death of 9 passengers and crew, including all 3 pilots. 2015, at least 310 people were killed in avalanches in northeast Afghanistan. And on this date in 2016, 3 people were killed and 14 others injured in a series of shootings in the small Kansas cities of Newton and Heston. Now, why people go on shooting sprees is anybody's guess. Usually they're trying to blow off steam or get back at those they think have wronged them. That's almost as dumb as self-immolation. But this does finish our little history segment. I'm going to turn now to some stories in the news that you may find interesting. California is continuing its efforts to oppose President Trump in the ICE raids against undocumented immigrants. Flyers showing the names, pictures, and phone numbers of immigration and customs enforcement agents have been posted in Southern California neighborhoods. Multiple federal law enforcement sources confirmed to Fox News national correspondent Bill Mulligan that anti-ICE activists who've been interfering with ICE operations in the LA area in recent days have started putting up posters featuring the personal information of ICE and Homeland Security investigation officers working in the LA area. The posters, which are written in Spanish, translate to "careful with these faces." These armed agents work in Southern California. ICE and HSI racially terrorize and criminalize entire communities with their policies. According to these activists, the undocumented immigrants have a right to disregard our borders and come here. And if people try to enforce the law, they're evil and racist. Well, Joy Reid and MSNBC talking head has been fired. Rachel Maddow, who's also on shaky ground, blasted MSNBC for terminating Reid's show, calls out the network's treatment of staffers in a stunning rebuke, called it a great mistake to cancel Joy Reid's show. What they don't seem to take into account is that ratings have hit an all-time low. Nobody wants to watch either Maddow or Joy Reid. Maddow took a moment last night to address the changes being announced at MSNBC. In fact, her own show is going to be heard only Mondays at the conclusion of President Trump's first 100 days in office. She specifically called the cancellation of the readout very, very, very hard to take. She said she's 51 years old, been gainfully employed since she was 12. She went on a wild tear. What she doesn't stop to think is if the company doesn't make money, they can't pay her. The President Trump's White House is warning a key Democrats' move to end the president's energy national emergency would kill the hundreds of jobs and cost $3.6 trillion in higher prices and lost energy output. It's the Democratic individual who is trying to do all this is Tim Kaine. He's a senator. He's a Democrat from Virginia and a ranking member of the Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee. They filed a resolution, Kaine and Martin Heinrich, Democrat of New Mexico, filed a joint resolution to end Trump's energy national emergency. And they want to bring it to a vote in the Senate. It would lead to a loss of 869,800 jobs, according to the White House document obtained by Fox News. And it would bring back the Biden administration policies. During Biden's first 2 years, families spent an additional $10,000 in energy costs on average. Democrats don't seem to get it through their head that Trump was elected because he promised to change the crap that they've been doing. One thing Musk has done, his investigations have discovered that billions of dollars have literally vanished. And I'll give you two guesses where that money went. Well, an event called Orange Crush 2025 is going to draw about 50,000 people to Tybee Island in the state of Georgia. I looked at moving to Tybee Island at one time. But that island is not prepared to handle 50,000 people, let me tell you. GOP Representative Darrell Issa introduced a bill aimed at preventing federal judges from issuing nationwide injunctions designed to derail the president's political agenda. It's known as the No Rogue Ruling Act. We got judges, by definition, think they're God's anointed. We got a couple of here that I don't know how they can manage to get to their office every morning. They're so frigging dumb. And what decides which way they rules, which side their friends are on. I had a judge tell me after our attorney was bribed to walk away, which one of my friends do you want to represent you now? And I said, none of them, and he had a fit. Well, there's a lot of drugs out there, and some reduce dementia risk, and others seem to increase it. Now, that's according to a recent study by the Universities of Cambridge and Exeter. Researchers evaluated several existing drugs, see if they could do double duty as dementia treatments. Alrighty. In New York City, which basically had become an illegal immigrant enclave, a lot of migrant shelters have been shuttered, which shows that President Trump's program has been successful. According to one New York state lawmaker, it's a victory for taxpayers, a disaster for the progressives. It's set up policies that have hurt New Yorkers. A lot of the backlash against Musk and against Trump's policies have come from left-leaning organizations, in many cases funded by George Soros, who apparently has made it his life work to disrupt anything President Trump tries to do. Maryland school board member was targeted under Title IX investigation after speaking out against trans policy. There was a Republican school board member who questioned if gender identity policy violated the First Amendment. Excuse me for making the observation, but if gender is based upon physicality, I guess is the best term, no matter what you say, no matter what you identify as, there are males and there are females. I don't know any other way to look at it. And that seems to upset so many people. One of Musk's policies for federal employees, after telling them to come back to work or you're fired, they have to say what they've done in the last week. When I worked for the government, and I worked for them for a year, I was a GS-10. I saw people sit and listen to the radio. I saw government employees on the internet. Yes, we had computers in those days. Playing games. Anything but working. I used to upset the folks that worked for me because I expected something to be accomplished. That was terrible. That wasn't being fair. Well, Pope Francis has been in the hospital for the 10th straight day. From what I understand, he seems to be getting a little better. Well, Egypt has blocked the exits from Gaza. President Trump wanted the people living in Gaza to be relocated to Lebanon and Egypt, and Egypt said no. They don't want to deal with those troublemakers. They're saying a record number of Americans, buoyed by what's known as Generation Z, identify as LGBT. Of course, that depends on where you do your poll, I would suspect. Okay, I guess Israel has gotten tired of the silliness and taken off the gloves and ramped up their military effort to stamp out terrorism in the West Bank. Well, on that note, that pretty much ends our news segment. We've been talking the last few shows about ghosts and hauntings. Yesterday we talked about stories of the women in red and the women in white. There have been so many different stories about various aspects of the paranormal. The paranormal has fascinated people for centuries. And there are people whose life work are investigating ghosts and hauntings. Now, some of them are just literally silly people. Others have, in fact, been very serious about what they do. Now, one haunting, for lack of a better term, that some folks I knew had connection with is what's referred to as the vanishing hitchhiker. And you can find stories about the vanishing hitchhiker around the world. But you have to ask yourself, are they ghosts, hallucinations, or just the stuff of scary urban legends? Let's set the scene. It's late at night. You're driving down a dark, lonely road. In your headlights, you see somebody standing on the side of the road with their thumb out and deciding that nobody should be on the side of the road on a night like this. You slow down and pick them up. And despite your best efforts to make conversation, your passenger doesn't respond, but beyond telling you where they want to go. And usually they get in the back seat when you stop to pick them up. That should be the first signal something is odd. And as you approach their drop-off points, you look in the rearview mirror and there's nobody sitting in the back seat. They've vanished. Well, that's a typical vanishing hitchhiker story. Now, this type of situation has been reported, with variations, of course, around the world for decades. Even the Bible contains a vanishing hitchhiker. In the book of Acts, the Apostle Philip is picked up by a charioteer, and after blessing the owner of the chariot, he vanishes. Now, rarely, though, do we hear the story from the point of view of the person that disappears. The vanishing hitchhiker is most familiar to us today, though. It's as one joined in the mass production of the motor car. Ever more busy roads and electric lights to guide them, more and more people find themselves driving at night. And the more opportunities are being offered on Lyft, even more people took to hitchhiking when they couldn't afford to buy a car themselves. Now, America is the natural location for the vanishing hitchhiker to manifest. Wide open country, early adoption of automobiles, and a willingness to help strangers put a lot of folks into situations where they might offer lifts to stranded people. And I've picked up a few in my time. Vanishing hitchhiker is also a democratic apparition, where before you might only meet a ghost in a large ancient manor house in Europe. In the U.S., you only have to have a car to run into a ghost. The scene was set for the vanishing hitchhiker to appear, if only briefly. By the late 1930s, all across the U.S., people are hearing tales of hitchhikers who mysteriously vanish from cars. Researchers attempted to find an original story that all the later ones are built on, but nobody's been able to do that yet. It's as if the vanishing hitchhiker rose in many places all at once. The story is told in the middle of the 20th century in the U.S. There were three main strands. In the first one, the driver is given an address by the hitchhiker before they disappear. When they get there, they find the hitchhiker they picked up had in fact died several years before. One tale from Baltimore was a doctor who offered a lift to a young girl wearing a ball gown in the middle of the nowhere. When he got to the girl's house, she was suddenly not there. Concerned, the doctor rang the doorbell and was greeted by the girl's parents. And instead of being alarmed at the doctor's story of a disappearing girl, the parents are, I guess you could say, accepting, explaining that it had happened several times since her daughter died in a car crash or at the place where the doctor found her. Second variation of the story involves a young man who meets an attractive girl at a party. When he offers her a lift home, she agrees, but during the journey, she vanishes. And the address she's given him turns out to be a graveyard. One of the graves is an item he instantly recognizes as belonging to the young lady. And the third type of vanishing hitchhiker story is one with prophetic powers. One of the most famous stories is said to have occurred during the Second World War and took place near Pearl Harbor. In this particular story, a man offers to drive an old lady home, and she's so grateful she offered to pay for the extra fuel he'll be using. And when he turns down her money, she instead tells his future. Within an hour, she said, he'd see a dead body. Within 6 months, Hitler would be dead. The woman then vanished. Well, amazingly enough, he did see a dead body in the allotted time she had given. He saw a car crash and was left with a certain knowledge that his demise was not too far behind. In modern Hawaiian folklore, the volcano and creator goddess Pele often appears as a vanishing hitchhiker. These variations is a basic outline, you can see how the vanishing hitchhiker could be relocated to almost any place in the world. Address hitchhiker gives could be in any town. Anybody who's lost a child to a car accident could be the grieving parent that opens the door. Wherever there's a cemetery, there might be a ghost trying to return to their eternal resting spot. In short, you have all the building blocks needed for a classic urban legend. Urban legends differ from ghost stories in a number of ways. While a report of a ghost sighting may simply be that a person mentions seeing a ghost, an urban legend is a whole lot more involved. For an urban legend to be passed around, it has to include characters and a plot, and quite often a moral to the story. Some reports of a vanishing hitchhiker, we find all these things. When a naive young man gives a lift to a ravishing and mysterious stranger, later disappears, but leads him to a graveyard, the meaning is all too clear. The world is full of seductive dangers for naive young men. It's interesting that many, if not most, vanishing hitchhikers are female. Maybe because of the perceived need to aid lone women seen out at night. When male hitchhikers vanish, they're often described as dark and brooding and somehow threatening. Urban legends tend to be immutable in their location and details, just as we see with stories about the vanishing hitchhiker. Where the vanishing hitchhiker differs from urban legends where specific cases can be tracked down. I'm referring, of course, to Resurrection Mary in Chicago. One night in the 1930s, a girl by the name of Mary had a quarrel with her boyfriend at a dance and refused his offer to drive her home. Walking along Archer Avenue, she was struck and killed by a car. Ever since then, drivers have reported seeing a girl dressed for a dance, waiting at that particular spot. And those who stop to help find Mary says nothing as they drive along, but whenever they reach Resurrection Cemetery, she vanishes. Sometime when they look at her, or where she was sitting, she's gone. Other times she thanks them, gets out, walks toward the cemetery gates, and just fades away. Some even claim that her fingerprints are burned into metal bars at a graveyard gate. Here we see a version of the tale that has a concrete location and is unchanging in its details. The identity of Resurrection Mary has even been suggested as belonging to real individuals. She may have been someone named Mary Brigavi, who died in 1934, or Anna Marha-Norkus, who died in a car accident leaving the same dance hall that Resurrection Mary said they walked home from. If you want more details, in South Africa, you might meet the Uniondale ghost. According to newspaper reports, a couple were driving home at night when the driver lost control and his fiancée, Maria Charlotte Roux, was thrown from the car and killed. In 1976, the driver saw a young girl standing by the road in the rain. Stopped to let her into the car, and all she'd say was an address. Before he got to that destination, of course, the girl vanished. Understandably alarmed, the driver went to a police station where an officer, again understandably, sent him away as a time waster. As soon as he got in the car, he heard an unearthly scream. Went back to the police station. Policeman saw one of the car doors open and close of its own accord as if an invisible passenger got out. The fact that the names of two witnesses are recorded and the precise date known sets the report apart from the usual run of urban legends. The other case with named individuals, the infamous vanishing hitchhiker of Bluebell Hill on the A229 in Kent. There, the ghost of Susan Brown, who died in 1965, is said to wait for helpful drivers to offer her a ride. It's said that wherever somebody has lost their life to a traffic accident, there's a chance for a vanishing hitchhiker to come on into being. Maybe it's because we see so many young lives cut short in this way that we can easily believe they could cling on as ghosts, trying to reach the place they never did reach when they were alive. You know, one of the most famous and the disappearing hitchhikers took place during World War II. Frances Xavier Cabrini, known to her New York neighbors as Mother Cabrini, was the first U.S. citizen to be made a saint. Fondly remembered because of her record of opening orphanages and teaching and providing for the poor. But in New York, she also became famous for her appearance as a disappearing hitchhiker during the Second World War. Now, wars, of course, are fertile breeding grounds for prophecy, especially when the prospect of peace is concerned. In the New York area in 1941, a story spread about a nun who would get into a taxi and predict the end of the war within months before she disappeared. Well, despite her supernatural abilities, of course, these predictions all turned out to be wrong. Now, Mother Cabrini died in 1917. One taxi driver who was devoted to her recognized the nun as none other than Cabrini herself. And soon after that, the driver said to have suffered a nervous breakdown. You know, a lot of miracles are attached to her. The local Catholic churches soon moved to quash rumors of her return. Whether or not Mother Cabrini really did appear briefly in cars in 1941, some folklore see the stories belonging to tales from other cultures, especially Hawaii, where a holy person or a native god, not a ghost, is a passenger that vanishes. Mother Cabrini was born in Lombardy. She was told to go to America, not China, by the Pope. He's supposed to have said, not to the east, but go to the west. And she did, and went on to become a saint. Well, another interesting phenomena that fascinates people is the poltergeist. Now, its manifestations are rooted in physical disturbances, but the phenomena actually dates back to ancient times. I mean, most people are familiar with some of the strange goings-ons at the Borley Rectory. Almost from the day Reverend Henry Dawson Ellis Bull and his family moved into their newly constructed residence in Borley, Essex, in 1862. Visitors listened curiously to unexplained footsteps. 4 daughters of the rector thought they saw the ghost of a nun at twilight about 40 yards outside the imposing structure. Story circulated of a phantom coach driven by a pair of headless horsemen. When the house was nearly 70 years old, the young wife of Reverend Guy Eric Smith is said to have found a plain paper package in a cupboard. When she opened it up, she was shocked by the discovery of a woman's skull, which I think would shock most people. Among the varied troubles were the distinctive sounds of electric servants' bells ringing, although they'd been disconnected. More mysterious footfalls and odd appearances of light in the windows. These area occurrences, without the physical manifestations of a ghost or other apparition, are generally classified as poltergeist. Mischievous and malevolent spirits that make their presence known with noise and activity. In fact, some of that activity can be quite violent. The word poltergeist stems from the German poltern, meaning to rattle, and geist, meaning spirit. The phenomena of the poltergeist is among the most ancient of paranormal encounters in the history of mankind. First one I can find a record of is from ancient Egypt. Others date to the 1st century and even Roman times. Poltergeist is recognized for its effects rather than its ephemeral appearance. It's characterized by banging and tapping and other loud noises, ringing telephones, flashing electrical lights, hurling of stones, misplacing of personal effects. Books fly off the shelves, and even physical and sexual assault. Each of them without the sighting of a perpetrator. But nevertheless, sometimes leaving victims with injuries and skeptics scratching their heads. Well, poltergeists are widely believed to be associated with particular individuals, although it's not always the case. Children, especially prepubescent girls, are regularly known to be the victims of these visitations. Such a term can be appropriate. Individuals may experience psychological or emotional stress or even a hormone imbalance that leads to behavior and experiences attributable to paranormal activity. Poltergeists are the focus of study of parapsychologists, whose field is often viewed with incredulity within the mainstream scientific community. Though fraud and deception have been discovered, other manifestations remain unexplained, and the study of phenomena flourishes. Of course, you have to wonder about the folks who called themselves parapsychologists. I knew one who was goofy as a road lizard. Parapsychologist William Roll, a German-born professor with the psychology department at the University of West Georgia, coined the phrase recurrent spontaneous psychokinesis, or RSPK, to describe the general activities of the poltergeist. Such activities tend to focus on a specific individual. They begin suddenly and they dissipate quickly as well. Some researchers have concluded the poltergeist activity is the manifestation of some prior psychological trauma. Others argue that a person's violent death, while in a physical frenzy, may trigger a return of that individual in poltergeist form to exact vengeance. Others assert that poltergeists are literally heightened emotion implanted into the fabric of time itself. Releases are like recordings, so the energy is dissipated. According to some researchers, the poltergeist experience stems from a psychic source and differs markedly from a haunting generated from the spirit world. Manifestation of the poltergeist is said to last for a short time. Rarely in history have such experiences been known to extend beyond days or weeks, ebbing into what you might call disturbed memory. But there have been exceptions. Of course, there are those unscrupulous charlatans who've developed elaborate hoaxes and others who prey upon the credulous. Despite these occurrences, the evidence of numerous poltergeist experiences does remain unverified but valid to many, particularly those who have first-hand involvement. Verifiable poltergeist activity has never been captured on camera, and physical evidence is always subject to harsh scrutiny. Reverend Lionel Algernon Foster and his wife Mary Ann moved into Borley Rectory with their adopted daughter Adelaide in October 1930. They probably were aware of strange occurrences at the residence, but they were unprepared for the outburst of poltergeist manifestations that greeted them. Windows not only rattled, they shattered. Bells rang, bottles and stones were hurled about, apparently by no one. Writings were scrawled across walls, one of them supposedly reading, "Mary Ann, please help me get out." And Adelaide was locked in a room with a key nowhere in sight. Mary Ann was summarily tossed from her bed by an unseen force, and Adelaide was attacked by an invisible assailant who was simply described as something horrible. Well, Reverend Foster attempted 2 exorcisms, but in the midst of the first, he was struck in the shoulder by a large stone. He wrote a description of the unsettling events and sent it to well-known psychic researcher Henry Price. And reports of the occurrences reached newspapers. The researchers evaluated the situation, settling on Mary Ann as the cause, either unknowingly or deliberately, and she admitted to fabricating some of the incidents to cover up a romantic affair with a boarder. Still, other events remained unexplained, and rightly so. Some of the poltergeist-related events taken place before the Fosters even arrived at Borley Rectory. They finally moved away in October 1935. Price leased the property in the spring of 1937 and brought a group of 48 observers to report anything odd going on at the rectory. A few months later, one of Price's associates conducted a seance in Streatham, reportedly making contact with a deceased nun named Marie Laurie, who left her order and been murdered at Borley Hall, the 17th century manor house on the site of the rectory. The body was said to have been thrown down a well. Soon another spirit, identified as Sunix Amores, supposedly claimed he would set fire to the rectory in March of 1938, and the bones of a murdered individual would be discovered. Well, amid these extraordinary events, Price labeled Borley Rectory the most haunted house in England. Then on February 27th, 1939, the new owner of the rectory knocked over an oil lamp. Subsequent fire heavily damaged the structure, and Debate ensued as to whether the blaze would have been set deliberately. As you might suspect, the insurance company refused to pay the owner's claim. Well, Price led an excavation into the rectory cellars in 1943 and claimed to have found 2 bones he believed were those of a young woman. They were buried in a nearby churchyard, even though doubters claimed they were the bones of a pig. And after Price died in 1948, several detractors accused him of fakery. He revived the confessions of Mary Ann Foster, and she repeated her story of guilt. But some of the events at Borley Rectory remain unexplained, and the debate as to the presence of a poltergeist continues even today. True enough, many of the legendary poltergeist activities at the rectory have been invented, but the prospect that at least a few of them contain a shroud of credibility is certainly tantalizing. Other stories of poltergeists have come and gone, some more believable than others. And those who experience such unexplained phenomena may consider the nature of their encounter. Poltergeist activity, of course, is characterized by unexplained interference, interruption, or onset of electrical current, odd smells with no apparent source inside a building, objects appearing to levitate or being thrown some distance and potentially capable of causing serious injury. Objects that seem to vanish and possibly reappear in odd locations. Surges of unexplained power, such as a clock that has not worked for years suddenly coming to life. Tapping or knocking noises of unexplained origin, and even physical assault. Well, for those in pursuit of the unexplained, the aid of a parapsychologist certainly could be beneficial. Thorough investigation can provide answers or even deepen the mystery. Subject of poltergeist activity continues to generate interest and become a mainstay of the entertainment industry, which has produced many films depicting such phenomena. No doubt, of course, the idea of the poltergeist, steeped in the real and the imagined, folklore and fantasy, piques the curiosity of everybody. Its lure is enduring, and the fascination with its possible existence in the physical realm ensures that its popularity is not going to dismiss anytime soon. Well, speaking of horror movies, did you know one horror movie actually spawned a cult and cemented a curse? No other modern media has the power to draw on popular imagination more than the feature film, and the 1982 release of the blockbuster Poltergeist, directed by Tobe Hooper and produced by the legendary Steven Spielberg, did just that. It was a riveting tour de force of horror. The film depicts the ordeal of the Freeling family, their house constructed atop a Native American burial ground, and restless otherworldly apparition visiting with the youngest member of the family. Now, it was the flaxen-haired second daughter. They visited her through a television set, and as the phenomenon manifests itself, she proclaims to the audience, "They're here." A poltergeist boosted the study of the phenomenon became a classic, ranked number 84 on American Film Institute's 100 Years and 100 Thrills, which is said to be a compendium of the greatest heart-stopping movies in U.S. history. With a scene depicting an attack on the Freeling son Robbie by a clown doll, ranked 80th among Bravo's 100 scariest movie moments. The movie starred Craig T. Nelson, Jo Beth Williams, Heather O'Rourke, and Dominique Dunn. The film spawned 2 sequels and a legacy that some believe involves a curse. Did you know that 4 deaths occurred during or soon after the production of the franchise, including Dunn herself, strangled by her boyfriend, and young Cherubic O'Rourke, who tragically died at age 12 during emergency abdominal surgery? You never know what's going to happen, especially when you're involved in something like where you may be waking up things better left asleep. Well, on that note, we come to the end of today's show. We'll be back tomorrow and talk about more of the strange and unusual. Until then, Ken Hudnall for the Ken Hudnall Show saying have a truly great evening.